Hey, podcast friends. This is Dr. Steve Hewlett with the podcast, Simple Healthy Choices for Weight Loss, where every week we help people who have realized that as their health has been declining over the years, the number of medications they are being prescribed is increasing. We want to help you reverse this health path so you can live the vibrant, pain-free, and hopefully medication-free life you deserve to live. If you'd like even more information on this topic, you can go to Amazon or Audible and pick up my book, Your Plate is Your Fate. And if you think my book helps you on your new health path, please tell your friends and leave a review where you purchased it. Hey, welcome back again, podcast friends. And today in this episode, I want to do something just a little bit different. And this is something that I just recently realized that I have not talked about. And where I've got most of my information was actually from a book. And what I'm talking about is the difference between buying food that is manufactured organically versus buying food that is manufactured through industrial chemicals. So this is basically like regenerative farming versus industrial farming with the chemicals. And the book that I'm talking about, that I'm going to be talking about this whole episode, is a book called Feeding You Lies: How to Unravel the Food Industry's Playbook and Reclaim Your Health. And this book is written by a woman by the name of Vani Hari. It's V-A-N-I, and her last name's Hari, H-A-R-I. And Vani Hari, she is a revolutionary food activist. She's also on the New York Times best-selling author. And she started a website called foodbabe.com. So if you go to foodbabe.com, and she's going to have a lot of information on there as far as how to help spread the information about what's really in the American food supply. And this book was eye-opening. She has influenced major food giants. So she didn't just write a book. She actually goes out and she talks to these big companies, food companies. And she's actually influenced these huge giants like Kraft, General Mills, Subway, Chipotle, Chick-fil-A, and Starbucks to help them create their products that have a lot more healthier products in them, healthier ingredients. And so she's actually getting out there and trying to change what we already know is bad. And basically where this starts, way back in the 1940s, up into the 1940s, we'd always had old-fashioned farming, your regular regenerative farming where you keep the topsoil healthy, and it had been around for generations. But then this then got replaced in the 40s by industrial farming, which basically means these companies came in and started telling them that they can grow a lot better crops if they just put all these chemicals on it. So these farmers started putting all the chemicals on it. And they said these industrial farmers were telling them that this is going to give them a lot better crops. You're going to get a lot more with less labor. And so some of the farmers decided to do that. And they started spraying the crops with all these chemicals. And it did fine for a while until World War II came out. So basically, remember, old-fashioned farming methods, what they do is they maintain a very healthy topsoil. However, when the World War II broke out, they started coming back and they had to start using these same toxins, these same industrial chemicals that they were putting on their food. They were needing to use them to make the munitions for the army. So all their chemicals ran out. And once all their chemicals ran out, they found that by doing this farming with these chemicals, it left the topsoil extremely vacant. I mean, there was no nutrients in these topsoil at all. And now the chemicals we're talking about are chemicals like the dozens of synthetic pesticides, growth hormones, and antibiotics. But once they came and they took all these growth hormones and pesticides and antibiotics away from them and everything, and all these other chemicals that they used, they found that their soil was horrible. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't grow anything on this soil. And so this started leading them to think, well, maybe this isn't so good, that we are so reliant on these chemicals, and that if these chemicals are taken away, now how are we going to grow our crops? So they started looking at these chemicals that they're putting on it and trying to find out what exactly are these chemicals doing. And they found that a lot of these chemicals that are in our food is actually obesogenic, which means just by eating this type of crops, it actually makes people get more obese. They get bigger, and everything that they were feeding it to is actually getting much, much bigger. And that's why they give things like antibiotics and things like that to industrial raised cows. But they found that there's different things that are in these products that are obesogenic. and the antibiotics, the growth hormones, even the pesticides and the synthetic preservatives. These are just a few of the chemicals that have been known in studies that actually cause people to become more obese. And so all of us who are advocating for a safer food system, we are up against huge corporations and extremely shady front groups for these corporations who do not want to change these practices. And this is why, since they don't want to change their practices and they're putting all this food out and they're putting all this stuff out in the media, telling everybody that their food is the best way to go, we have seen skyrocketing. And you've heard this in all my other episodes. Since all this type of farming and all this kind of food that we're starting to eat now, we are having skyrocketing rates of obesity, diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular conditions, allergies, total body inflammation, and it goes on and on and on what they're finding out that these chemicals are doing inside our bodies. The other thing is the pesticides, because these food companies are coming out and they're saying things that they're telling everybody in commercials and in social media and everywhere. They're saying that we have to have pesticides. We have to have that in order to feed the world. And this is so deceptive, since the experts from the UN Human Rights in a 2017 news release stated that pesticides are a global human rights concern. In this study on the UN Human Rights in 2017, they say that these same chemicals are damaging the environment. They end up in our water systems, they damage our ecological system, and they contaminate the soil. And they are a huge environmental threat to our future food production. The UN Special Reports on Toxics and the Right to Food state, it's time to overturn the myth that pesticides are needed to feed the world and create a global process to transition to safer and healthier food and agricultural production. Okay, that's the actual statement that came from the UN Special Reporters on Toxic and Right to Food state. However, what they found also, besides this, is that these chemicals that are being used in these industrial farms are actually affecting the farmers that are working these farms as well. And it said, according to the 2010 Department of Health and Human Services President's Cancer Panel annual report, it revealed that there's a link between exposure to synthetic pesticides and an increased number of cancer cases in farm workers, as well as leukemia in children living in farming communities. And this is because these products are what's called endocrine disruptors. That's what all these chemicals are. And an endocrine disruptor, these are substances that basically disrupt your hormones, and they lead to all kinds of reproductive problems, early onset puberty, obesity, diabetes, and like we said, some cancers. And these food companies are telling everybody, well, this is fine because it's not going to happen with our chemicals because the dose makes the poison. They're saying that because they're using so little chemicals in these, that it doesn't make a difference. But what they aren't doing is showing that if you are subject to these chemicals day in and day out, over and over and over chronically, that these small exposures actually build up very much, and they actually become extremely chronic conditions that you end up with and they're extremely damaging to your body. And so it doesn't just mean the small amount that's in the product you're eating right now. It's eating these continuously small amounts over and over. Same thing you're seeing with the sugar and these ultra processed carbohydrates and these vegetable and seed oils. If you just look at what happens if you eat one meal, you're not going to see a big difference. But when you see what you've done when you eat this every single day over and over and over, 10, 20 years, all of a sudden these toxic effects really, really build up, and they do start damaging your body in horrible ways. So that's why these conventional companies, or conventional or industrial companies, these are the companies or farmers that actually use these products. When you use these industrial chemicals, and then you tell everybody that it's fine to do this, these are extremely dangerous lies that these industrial chemical companies are telling everybody. And so the other thing that they're trying to tell everybody, besides saying the dose makes the poison, you don't have to worry about it because it's such little amounts. The other thing they're saying that buying organic fruits and vegetables from supermarkets is a waste of money, because there's a lot of money that these big food companies and industrial ag companies are putting towards all these front groups to go out there and spread lies, put stuff out in the social media, put it out on the everywhere that they can put information out where people are going to read. And they actually are lying, but they pay these people to put out these titles. So these are some of the titles that I ran across in this book. There's one that says buying organic fruits and vegetables from supermarkets is a waste of money. Another one said the organic label misleads and rips off consumers. Another one said organic foods are just a marketing label. And another one said, don't believe the organic hype. I'm here to tell you, these are lies. There is a huge difference between buying organic and buying not organic. But the big food and the big ag, they rely heavily on these front groups that are sitting there and trying to feed these lies to everybody. And what they do is they train these seemingly independent farmers, which they are not, but they train them to be bloggers and scientists, and they act as if these were expert sources for journalism. And then they put that out in the media, and the media just keeps falling for it. And it's nothing but lies. It's just money changing hands, telling these other people to put out these stories, put out these media episodes, telling people that this stuff is good, organic is bad. There's a huge, huge fight between these chemical companies and the organic companies. And so why the lie? Why would they lie? Why would these big food companies and big ag companies lie and tell people not to buy organic? Reason is because these big chemical companies, mainly like Monsanto and these other agrochemical companies like Dow and Bayer, these are the people who actually make all these chemicals like Roundup with this glyphosate and pesticides and all these GMO feeds. And these are all banned on organic farms. The organic farms aren't going to let any of this stuff in. So if everybody went to organic farming, that means they would not be using any of these chemicals, which means that these companies' profits would disappear. And that's the same thing I've been telling you as far as buying from your local farmers markets and just your local farmers as far as your meat, your fruits, and your vegetables. If everybody was buying from their local farmer and for their fruits and vegetables and meat, that means the money would be going to them to be able to make their farms better instead of buying all this ultra processed food where all your money is going to them, where they're just putting more chemicals in your food supply and basically killing us. So that's why they want to go out and they don't want to tell everybody that it's not worth it to buy organic and that you really need to have these toxic chemicals and all their GMOs, because they are making a lot of people happy as far as all their shareholders and the people who work for the company, even though it's killing the public. So this brings up the other question about GMOs. So what are GMOs? A GMO, that means a genetically modified organism. Okay, so these are other things that these industrial companies are trying to do. And you already know a lot of these GMO products, but what they do is a GMO foods come from animals, plants, or microbes whose DNA have been altered using organic engineering techniques. So if you've bought anything like seedless grapes, seedless watermelons, anything with wheat, all our wheat is GMO now. There are so many products that are genetically modified where they modify the DNA for these so they can get more product, or they can make fruit sweeter so you can keep eating their product. But what they aren't telling you is some of these chemicals are actually in the products that you're eating. And the biggest ones that are GMOs, or genetically modified, are corn, soy, canola, zucchini and yellow summer squash, sugar beets, and wheat. Now, the odd thing is all these other ones are genetically modified and nobody really says anything about it or does anything about it. But for some reason in the United States, wheat has become known of how bad GMO wheat is. So we really don't grow that much GMO wheat in the United States. Most of our GMO wheat is actually grown in other countries. But if you're buying the products, you're still getting these genetically modified organisms. And these GMOs are actually banned in Europe due to the fact that that's proposed advantage to the agriculture is so weak to non-existent, while the risk to humans is considered substantial. So the three main concerns with genetically modified organisms, or the GMO products, are their increased levels of the naturally occurring toxins, which are substances that cause injury, illness, or death of living organisms. So they're known for actually transfer. If you eat a genetically modified organisms, had all these antibiotics, they end up getting this antibiotic resistant. And when you eat this fruit, now they've found that there's a transfer of this antibiotic resistance to humans as well. There's also the increased potential for allergies. And for this reason, a lot of this information has been out. So a lot of people have already become aware. A lot of people know to stay away from GMO foods. But food companies, they've come up with that also. Just like I've told you in the past, like if you want to buy something with healthy olive oil or avocado oil, you'll go through the shelves, your grocery store shelves, and you'll be in the condiment section or whatever, and you'll see something like a salad dressing. And on the front, it says, made with real avocado oil. But then when you turn around and look at the active ingredients, the first two ingredients are going to be something like sugar and vegetable or seed oils. And then way down at the bottom of the ingredient list, there's a little bit of avocado oil. So they just kind of splash it off, but they advertise it all on the front of these products, even though they're full of all these vegetable and seed oils and not actually made with the avocado oil. That's the same thing we're doing with GMOs. Since a lot of people know that buying GMO is dangerous for your health, the food companies are coming up and they're saying, okay, well, let's just call things non-GMO. We'll put products in and say it's non-GMO, and then we'll tell everybody that that's healthy. That is not true. Just because something is not genetically modified does not make it healthy, because they're still using all these same chemicals on these types of crops. The most widely used herbicide on the planet is called Roundup. And Roundup is something they use on all these industrial chemicals. And they found that these non-GMO chemicals still are laden with these toxic pesticide residues, including the organophosphates. And these chemicals are linked to lymphoma and leukemias. And so what they do is they go out and they tell everybody this is non-GMO, but they're still spraying these non-organic ingredients on it. And the organic ingredients, they're not processed. These organic crops are the things like vegetable oils, like canola oil, soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil. All these vegetable seed oils, they use hexane as one of the things that's going to extract the oils out of the fruits and the vegetables. And hexane is another one of these industrial chemicals that has horrible properties in our bodies. It's sustained from crude oil, and it's a neurotoxin. Okay. And that's the most important thing. This is a neurotoxin that causes all kinds of problems with our bodies. And there's nothing that prohibits the use of hexane in these processed ingredients. So even if you're having a non-GMO products, you're still getting hexane, you're still getting glyphosate, you're still getting all these chemicals in these products that we don't want. These non-GMO crops can also be treated with what's called biosolids. Biosolids is just another name for sewage sludge. This means that they use the term biosolids, and it's just a euphemism or polite term, because this is the same fluid that's flushed down your toilet stool. So gets mixed in along with the waste from hospitals and industries. It's contaminated with things like toxic heavy metals, endocrine disruptors, pathogens, pharmaceuticals, pesticides, and dioxins. And it's been shown that some of these contaminants are absorbed into or remain on the outside of a lot of these crops that we're eating that are considered non-GMO, even though they're called that. And that's what they found, is that if there is soil that is contaminated with these toxins, then these toxins actually get inside the fruits and the vegetables also. So just washing off the outside isn't going to be enough, because it's actually within the product itself. And so that's why they're telling you that non-GMO is good. They'll produce those as say, oh, look, this is non-GMO, this is healthy for you. And they don't tell you that it's still unhealthy because of all these chemicals. So what you want to be is you want to be all certified organic. That's if you're going to buy that kind of food, if you're going to buy your fruits and vegetables and meat, you really want to make sure that it actually says organic. So this makes you wonder, is buying organic worth it? And of course, I'm saying yes, buying organic is definitely worth it. And the reason why, they found, even just besides getting rid of all these chemicals, they found that when you buy organic, it actually is better fruit and better vegetables. They found in studies, that organic tomatoes contain higher levels of flavonoids, more vitamin C, and lycopene. And flavonoids, these are chemicals that actually have a lot of medicinal benefits. They have anti-cancer benefits, antioxidants, anti-inflammatory, and antiviral properties. The lycopene that they're seeing in these better organically grown fruits, this lycopene is also an antioxidant, and it protects the body from all this free radical stress that we always talk about that can actually damage your DNA and your cell structures. And they found that organic foods have up to 69% more antioxidants and non-organic counterparts. And they also have up to 50% more omega-3 fatty acids than the inorganic. And remember, the omega-3 fatty acids, these are fatty acids that cause anti-inflammatory properties in your body. So when you buy industrial made fruits and vegetables, you're actually putting inflammation and chemicals on your body that cause more damage. When you buy organic, you're actually getting the type of healthy ingredients that come from the soil that actually protect you against these harmful properties that it has. So when you buy organic, it actually helps you avoid all these things. Because when you buy a thing that has, it says certified organic label on it, then this means that you are totally avoiding a lot of the dangerous chemicals, like the ultra-processed food additives, like artificial sweeteners, like aspartame and sucralose, artificial food dyes, like yellow number 5 and red number 4. And in her book, she breaks all these down and she talks all about all the different issues they've had with each of these type of ingredients that these industrial companies put in their food. And so it really is a good book. This chapter that I'm talking about is just out of one chapter. But that's the main thing we want to do is we want to stay away from all these horrible chemicals that they're putting in our food. And like I said, washing and peeling, that's not really going to help that much because a lot of these chemicals are actually absorbed into the food itself. And again, just like I said earlier, remember the UN Special Reporters on Toxics and the Right to Food? Remember their statement. It says, it's time to overturn the myth that pesticides are needed to feed the world and create a global process to transition to safer and healthier food and agricultural production. I just wanted to read that again because that is exactly what we're trying to fight against, is these big companies who are trying to tell everybody that pesticides are actually needed. We have to put these pesticides and all these things in our food product, and it is not true. So, yes, I do definitely think that buying organic is important, and it's important to us, and it's actually important to the farmers also who are making all this food. So organic farmers, meaning that, remember the industrial farmers, they were allowed to use these biosolids or the sewage sludge to put on theirs. Organic farmers are not allowed to use that. They can use livestock manure because that's the way that we've been doing it forever. But that's totally different from all this sewage sludge that's coming through our water systems. And these organic farmers can only use the organic certified pesticides and fungicides on their crops. Organic approved pesticides, even when they use those, are only allowed to be used as a last resort if the organic crops that they've tried, after they've tried many different methods and they all fail, then they can fall back on the organic approved pesticides. But even then, these are a lot better than those industrial produced pesticides. So in 2015, there was an advocacy group called Friends of the Earth, and they produced a report called Spinning Food: How Food Industry Front Groups and Covert Communications Are Shaping the Story of Our Food. And in this report, they exposed dirty tactics the big food and agrochemical companies implemented to combat the organic food movement. They revealed the deep pockets that these organic and that these industrial companies and these industrial food companies and the great big ag, all the money that they're putting out here for all these public relations to try to get people to eat their products and stay away from the organic products. It said that 30 pockets revealed that over $500 million were paid to these front groups in 2009 to 2013. It's also found that about 14 of these front companies spent $126 million during that same period, but they never disclosed where this money came from. So there's been a big push coordinating, and they coordinate these messages. So when they send it out with one group, and then that message goes out to all these different media groups. So everybody's saying the same thing. And when they do that, that makes us, the consumers, think that this must be real because we're seeing it in all these different places on all these different channels. And we don't realize that it's all being funded by the exact same people, and it's just trickling down from the top. So right now, Big Food continues to defend all these synthetic pesticides, antibiotic, GMOs, chemical food additives, artificial coloring, artificial flavoring, artificial sweeteners. All these big chemical companies are still promoting, saying that's the best way to grow our food that's going to feed our population. And we've already had a couple of different regenerative farmers on our podcast, so you can see how totally ridiculous that is. So what are you supposed to do from this? Well, the organic food company, they are making progress. So right now, the organic food now accounts for roughly about 5% of our total American food market. But we need this to go up. And the way we're going to get this to go up is by you buying organic food and staying away from all these GMO, even the non-GMO stuff. When they're trying to promote non-GMO, remember, just because it says non-GMO, that does not mean it's healthy, because they still use all these toxic chemicals. So how do you know? How do you know if you're buying organic or not? There's actually a USDA organic seal that you will see on foods. Now, they can't just put this on anything. I mean, these organic farmers have to go through certain steps before they can actually get this organic seal on there. So if it says on your label, if it says 100% organic, then they can use the USDA organic seal. And they can do that if it says, if every single one of the ingredients, 100% of the ingredients, except water and salt, are organic. If that's the case, then they can have the USDA organic seal. But they can also have the USDA organic seal if it just says organic. Because if it just says organic, it still means that 95% of the ingredients are organic, excluding water and salt. But the remaining 5% of the ingredients still cannot contain substances that are banned from organic food, such as the GMOs and all these artificial dyes and all these toxins that you spray for the pesticides and herbicides. However, if it just says made with organic ingredients, that does not get the organic seal, because that just means that at least 70% of these ingredients have to be organic. But that doesn't say anything about what the other 30%, and they could have any of these chemicals on it. So the only thing that's going to get the USDA organic seal are the things that are 100% organic or the things that just say organic. So look for the seal if you're out there trying to buy, and realize that you're going to be saving yourself a lot of money in medical bills, hospital visits, medications, everything. You're going to be a lot healthier. Your body's going to work a lot better. You're not going to have to deal with all these diseases that all these toxins come from if you just buy organic. And please do not buy the lie that all these these big ag and these big food companies are trying to tell you, saying that these products are good, because they're not. And especially all those that are made with all these chemicals and all these non-GMO products. So stay away from GMO. I would stay away from non-GMO, and just look for the organic seal, and that it'll say USDA organic right on the label. And if you've got that product, you can feel a lot safer that you're probably not going to be damaging your body. So I know this was long, and I know it was kind of different, but after reading this book, I really felt compelled that I needed to tell everybody that there is a huge difference between buying organic and not buying organic. So I hope this helps, and I will see you on the next podcast. So much for joining in. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great week. And remember, make simple, healthy choices to live a quality life. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button below, and be sure to tell someone else who may want to change their health path as well. And don't forget, you can also purchase my book, Your Plate is Your Fate, on Amazon or Audible. And if you do, please leave a review.